Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle. I don't think I'm going to be joined by my co-host tonight. The Commanders just lost 26-18 to the Philadelphia Eagles on Thursday Night Football on national television. The Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. So let's soak in this loss together. We have to take this on the chin, but the title of tonight's episode is Missed Opportunity, and it certainly was the case. I tweeted out that I thought that fumble on the sideline there was probably the game. That was the play, the one that really could have changed things around for Washington if they wanted to make a difference in that game. A lot of people will say, look, Eagles fans are going to say this is that they whooped our ass, all that other stuff. That's fine. We know how that game started out, what we were doing to Jalen Hurts, getting after him, forcing him to do things. But this is the kind of teetering act with offense and defense. The offense feeds off the defense, and the defense feeds off the offense. But obviously, the offense was really struggling to get going. They go through the run game. That's where a lot of their stuff happens. And off the run game is where they can kind of capitalize with a big play through the air most of the time. And typically with this offense this season, what you've seen is they kind of just go through things and then a big play happens and then they start lighting it up. And so it's hard for them to get into that rhythm of lighting something up when there's nothing really working besides just running the football. And I know everyone's going to say that Jaden doesn't look like himself. I will say that what I have seen, I don't think it's honestly an injury or anything like really pulling him back. I think it's more of a mental thing. His mechanics aren't always there. He's throwing off his back foot a heck of a whole lot. And you're seeing that in his trajectory of the football where it's going down towards the feet. It's not being a dart like it was before. Look, you could chalk that to possibly an injury. I think there is mechanics involved with it. The offensive line did not have a good game tonight. But the fact is, they're banged up. We knew coming into this game that Badass had 3 separate injuries. Wiley didn't play last week, comes in on a short week playing at right tackle, having to execute some crucial blocks on a guy like Jalen Carter, who is big and is an athletic freak. And it's hard to be able to execute those. Brandon Coleman did not have a good game. Sweat was really going to town on him and having his way with him. He truly needed those chip blocks. And we'll get into the 4th down call and everything that transpired in the later half of that game. But we have to remember, boys, guys, ladies, that was 10-6 going into the 4th quarter. And that's why I'm saying it's a missed opportunity. You had multiple chances. The kicker, Jake Elliott, was obviously helping Washington out by missing some field goals early on. But you got to find a way to capitalize. And I think what this team ultimately needs is to find a way to win when the offense can't explode. Hull and I talked about it on Tuesday, where in the second half, in that 4th quarter, things start to unravel. We saw it against the Bears. We saw it against the Steelers last week. And it's kind of hard when the offense bogs down a little bit, that's when things start to go awry. And you saw that certainly in this game where it almost felt like the old team before, where it's like you go in thinking maybe they can pull this off, and the defense is playing their ass off. They're getting after it, dude. And they are forcing turnovers. Not turnovers, but they're forcing punts. They're getting off the field. But the offense isn't coming through for you. And so you feel like you're just waiting for the dam to break almost. And that's certainly what this game felt like. You were just waiting for something to possibly happen. And that's what I honestly thought was going to happen, so that the offense is going to make a play. It's unfortunate that Terry didn't get into the mix quickly in that game. It did take him a little while, and it's a lot of credit to Quinyon Mitchell in that secondary. They're very good at what they do. And Vic Fangio is obviously a very good defensive coordinator. And if he has the pressure up front with those defensive tackles, it's going to make his life a little bit easier in calling plays, which is inevitably what ended up happening. It's unfortunate that Washington squandered this opportunity. But look, this is a long season. You got to dig deep. And you're seeing you saw the tiredness out of the defense, especially on that touchdown run by Barkley at the not this last one, but the second to last one. They're just beaten down, man. And Percy Butler just diving at the legs of Saquon, just giving him a tap on the thigh with his arm. That's piss poor, man. You got to fight a little bit more. And obviously, it's hard to be able to get on the defense because they played their ass off in this game. They were on the field a heck of a whole lot, especially early on. And throughout the duration of the game, the time of possession, the Eagles won 33 minutes to Washington's 26 minutes of 56 seconds, just south of 27 minutes. It seemed like a lot more lopsided in that sense. I will tell you that just before I even looked at the stats. First downs, the Eagles beat Washington with 23 first downs. Washington only had 18. But the tale of tonight's game, is the third downs. The Eagles were 9 of 16. We were 3 of 12. That is unacceptable. And especially that fourth down where it's second and inches and we can't get across, Whereas, I hate to say it, but that stupid tush puss where like that inches is an easy pickup for an offense like Philly. They just dive forward and they get it, And that's the unfortunate part is like something that should be an easy. It just seems like we go backwards. And that happened multiple times in this game where we would have a second and short, we get blown back. And now it's 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4. And now we're out of that kind of comfortability aspect of saying, can we run the ball here? Can we throw it to keep the defense off balance? It happened a lot. The Eagles beat us in passing yards, 206 yards passing. Washington had 171 yards passing. But the rushing yards is the big difference here. Philly opened the floodgates in the fourth quarter with a Saquon Barkley 44-yard run for a touchdown where the defense just gave up. And that's not something that you typically want to see out of your team. In the heart aspect of fourth quarter, it's where it's won. But it's understandable as to how long they were on the field and what they were asked to do tonight. They really were a force early on. But this defense, their MO as of late in this season has been – they've been doing really well early on, but then they kind of just get worn out by the end of that game. And Washington only had 93 yards rushing to the Eagles' 228. And that really is what broke the back because I was saying early on in that game, it seemed like we were going a little bit too pass-heavy at times, and we needed to rely on the running game because the running game wasn't bad. Brian Robinson, 16 carries for 63 yards and a touchdown. Austin Eckler through the air was like our primary receiver. He was our leading receiver today with 8 receptions for 89 yards. But that kind of tells you the tale of the day where your leading receiver is the running back. And that's not the MO that you want to beat the Eagles with. You want to be able to target down the field. You want to be able to stretch the field a little bit more, use the play action to your benefit. It just seems like we never got into that rhythm. And one thing I wanted to say, because a lot of people have a lot to say about Jaden's game, how he looks right now. He's definitely got to be hurt. This is his worst game yet. I would probably say it was his worst game, especially that interception that he threw. That was very uncharacteristic. That seemed like he was forcing the ball in there. There was an early third down where we're on our end zone. He looks to scramble upfield, and instead of keeping his eyes downfield looking for an open receiver, he's dedicated to running, and he gets stopped short by Nakobe Dean, who is a quarterback spy on the play, where he could have easily just tossed it to his left to Austin Eckler right there, or Zach Ertz was behind Austin or in front of Austin about 10 to 15 yards. Could have picked up the yardage there and been able to go down the field. It just seems like right now, and I want to say this about Jaden, what he did early on in this season, what he has done and is insane. It's uncharacteristic for a rookie quarterback to be playing at the magnitude that he was and currently is not. But you had to take that into consideration that wasn't going to happen for 17 games. That's a pipe dream. Like, this is the NFL. Naturally, in life, you're going to hit road bumps. That's going to happen. It's just how do you can you rely on your brothers? Can you find a way to win besides having that? Because obviously Washington was dependent early on in the season in winning in that regard, where it was the offense exploding, putting up over 30 points a game. That way we were able to get it done. It seems like the team right now is in that kind of transformation process of saying, okay, the offense isn't going to do that for us. How are we going to find other ways to win? And that's where it kind of meets in the end goal of saying, if you can find those other ways to win, and when that offense actually finds that again and being able to explode with points, that's when you're really cooking with gas and you can really make some things happen. And so I just want to put the caveat, just say with Jaden, I don't think this is Jaden not like maybe he is 100% healthy. I think there's a lot of people on that team who aren't 100% healthy. The point that I think is it's more of a mental thing, and this is natural for anybody playing the quarterback position in the NFL. You're going to have ups and downs, especially as a rookie. We were just blessed with a stretch that was just unbelievable and was historical. And so you can't just look at this and say, oh, it's done with, the season's over, Jaden's not going to get back to normal. Calm down. It's a speed bump. And that's what you really have to look at this and saying how amazing he was playing before. And you just can't expect that out of a young man coming into this league to do it for 17 games. Does that mean he's all but done with and you could write him? No, absolutely not, man. This is just the beginning. And he toughed it out with the injury that he did have, and he's still doing that. But this is where, as a team, you kind of develop into saying we have to find other ways to get it done. And ultimately tonight they didn't. They were hoping somebody would do something, and that just was not the case tonight. It just wasn't there. Didn't happen for him. So that being said, Jaden Daniels was 22 of 32 for 191 yards and an interception. I already talked about Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson. Zach Ertz, 6 receptions for 47 yards and a touchdown. Obviously, the touchdown at the end of the game and the 2-point conversion. Obviously, Zach showed up tonight, pushing Reed Blankenship on B-Rob's touchdown, pushing Blankenship all the way to the back of the end zone. That's what I like to see out of Zach. You know, we need a little bit of fire out of you, especially on the blocking game. But in this game, Jeremy Chin was playing lights out. I mean, he was really a force early on in that game. Led the team with 13 tackles. Frankie Louvu early on, pulling, almost looking like Dante Fowler. I think he has 7 sacks now for the season with 10 tackles, 2 sacks, and 3 quarterback hits. He was energetic early on. But that's kind of like the tail of this game where early on the defense was carrying a massive weight by bringing so much energy. By the time that third and fourth quarter comes down, they're spent, man. They need energy. They need something brought to them. They need the offense to come through for them, and just like a spark. And I think that's what Dan Quinn was trying to do by going for it on that fourth down. Because, yes, you wanted to settle for the field goal, and the statistics tell you kick the field goal, allow yourself a chance to be able to come back in that game. But I think what Dan Quinn is ultimately thinking there, that I want to convert this fourth down in order to give some energy to this team to say, we're not out of this. We can score points more than 3 and really give some energy and pump some life into this team. But ultimately, just disaster arose from it where the fumble, the Sam Cosmi almost jumps early on that play, which screws everything up. I think offensively, this was probably their worst performance of the season thus far. It wasn't just Jaden Daniels. It was everybody, and including the coaching staff, especially offensively. They just were discombobulated. As much as the defense really came to play tonight, the offense was obviously the complete opposite of that. And so this is where it's back to the drawing board. You have to be able, and with this mini bye where you have these 3 extra days, you're going to have an honest Friday. I know you'd love to be able to have the guys to have a rest day because they've played 2 games in 4 days. But the fact being is this is no time to just chill and relax. That's for the bye week. Let's get back. Let's watch what happened. Let's have the honest Fridays. And that way when you come back to work on Tuesday or Wednesday, you're ready to kick the tires and you're antsy to get back to be able to prove yourself once again. Unfortunately, like with the Bengals game on that prime time, Washington really put a stamp on things, really showcased themselves. In this game, it was the opposite. You took a big step back in terms of the what the national media is going to say. And Jaden Daniels said this early on, and I said it. Look, the kid frickin' gets it, man. When he said, I don't really take into consideration what everyone is saying about me because you can have a bad couple games and the conversation is going to change, right? Something I've said, many people have said, they pump you up just to bring you down, essentially. And that's what probably Jaden is going through on a national and local level at this point. We just have to remember it's amazing that we are 7-4. Like, nobody expected them. Like, a lot of people expected them to only win 6, 7, 8 games, right? You can't allow this to fall off, right? You have to go into this saying, we're playing with house money at this point. We're very early on in the process. We haven't gotten Lattimore activated. The team is very much banged up, so the bye week is still a couple weeks away. This is no time to feel sorry for yourself. Like, this is not a time you can say, oh, man, we're so beat up. We're so tired. I don't know how. Stop that. Like, this is what needs to be done. This is what has to be done. And the expectations were not met tonight. I did not think that this was an embarrassing loss. Me personally, I've been at the Monday Night Massacre. I've been there for some demoralizing, embarrassing losses that you just really, there was no good coming out of it. This is different in the sense of the defense really showcased themselves tonight and showed that they were a force. And it's very obvious they just needed a little bit of help, and that didn't happen. And so the unfortunate part is yes, you get left with more questions. Is Jaden Daniels hurt? Is the offense figured out? What's going on with the catching of the football? The drops were evident tonight again. But I think everything kind of meshes together in that sense, where nothing on offense was really clicking. Nothing was really being met together on offense. They need to be able to get into that rhythm, to get into that jive, to be able to feel good and confident about themselves. And typically they need a big play to do it. And I think that's where Terry McLaurin comes into play in most games, where he really is the lightning when for the offense and the gas with the flame, because he really shows them what you can do over the top. He just makes those plays. And tonight that just didn't develop, unfortunately. And so ultimately as a team, they need to take a step back, look at what happened, and say, this is what we need to get better at. The end of that game is not what we want to see our football team as. We have to remember this is a football team that is young together. The Eagles are a very concrete team. They've been together for a very long time. And they did not, even though they did not play very well as a unit, as an overall unit, that was still 10-6 going into the fourth quarter. And they themselves shot themselves in the foot. As much as everyone will say the Eagles stomped you, they whooped your ass, that's fine. Let them say all that. You let that go. And it's okay to embrace that. Take that on the chin. You let that happen to you. And the fact is, you got to find out how. You got to find out how to correct it. You got to go back to the basics. You got to understand what you're going to do from here on out and have a good plan and execute that plan and be able to be confident in that plan. The last thing you want to do is go into next week confused, saying, who are we? That's not what you want to do. You want to go into next week saying, this is exactly what we want to do. This is exactly how we're going to do it, and be confident that you will. There's going to be a lot to say about this football team over the next 10 days. It's going to be rough for the fan base. You're going to hear a lot of things locally. You're going to hear a lot of things nationally. But all I can say is just don't lose sight of where we came from to where we're going. This is not the tale of this football team. This is not the end-all, be-all. A lot of people will say a lot of crazy things. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You don't want to be okay with losses. I'm pissed. I was pissed with that fourth quarter because I think the fourth quarter comes down to heart. And I'm not going to say that the defense didn't have heart in the fourth quarter. It's hard to say that when they whooped their ass like they did. They were whooping their ass up into that fourth quarter, man. They were struggling to score points. I mean, yeah, they missed field goals, but we were still forcing those field goals. One of the craziest calls I've probably seen this season was that flag on Mikey Samerstill. I mean, that was freaking credible. Literally, AJ Brown is passing by his face, and they just like literally play patty cake. They're just like, "Bop," and they called an illegal contact to extend that drive. I was blown away by it. Obviously, we forced a field goal out of that, but that was one of those plays where it's like, what was that? Is that what you're calling a flag on now? Like, we've seen much more egregious things. Like, even going back to Alamati Zacchaeus block in the back against Tampa way back at week 1. That was another one of those where it's like, you're calling a flag on that? Look, man, we could point to different things of what happened in this game, but ultimately Washington shot themselves in the foot. And it's something that they've done this season a heck of a whole lot, and that's very normal for a young team. This is normal for a young quarterback to have hiccups. Because you have to imagine, if you're going to be exploding like Jaden Daniels was, you just life altogether, the lessons that are learned, it's not going to be easy, man. Like, there's going to be something to make you have to recalibrate, to be like to actually have to go back to the drawing board. And that's ultimately what happened with that rib injury, is that you're seeing, and possibly the cold weather. I've seen people hypothetically talk about that one. I don't know if the cold weather affects Jaden too much in that sense. Obviously, he's a Cali kid, went to LSU, we're down where it's warm. But if you're going to the NFL, you're going to play in cold weather games. You got to get used to it. I don't think that, honestly, it's that much of a detriment. If it is, it's kind of crazy because they have heaters on the sidelines. You got the quarterbacks have this special things that they put in there. Like, wait till you have to go to Green Bay in January. You know what I mean? That's going to be even worse than what you're dealing with now. So everyone calm down a little bit. I know everyone wants to find a reason, an excuse, and I think Cliff Kingsbury could have done a lot better job tonight, but ultimately they just did not have anything in the repertoire. They were inept on offense tonight. Unfortunately, to say, I don't like saying that, but nothing was working. They couldn't get anything going. And that's the unfortunate part, is the defense came to play, they came to compete. The offense just couldn't find anything. And we've seen that cedar saw. We've seen that before. And that's probably what a lot of people are struggling with right now, because as much as we said this is the new, this is the future, this is where we're going forward, it kind of brought you back to that feeling of the past. But you can't lose sight of where we are. You absolutely cannot. There's something special being built here. You can't lose sight of that because of one primetime loss, because the Eagles fans are going to be chirping. Who cares, man? Let them talk. It's okay. Like, the reason why they're talking is because this is their opportunity to pile. But look, just know that opportunity to be talking is not going to last very long. I can promise you that. Just in given a couple months, what Washington has been able to do since April and March, where they've brought in a 60% turnover rate to the actual personnel to be able to be competing with the Eagles for the NFC East. That is insane. It's insane that we're even talking about that right now. And that's the fact of the matter. So don't lose sight of it. They came up short. And this is where really good teams that have been there, done that before, they really take control of you, especially like somebody like the Ravens and the Steelers, for example. This is what they do. As a young team, you got to learn how to lose in order to learn how to win. And Washington continues to find ways to shoot themselves in the foot. And unfortunately, that reared its ugly head again tonight, where they kind of collapsed in that fourth quarter. And that's not what you like to see, of course. But the good thing is, I don't want to make excuses for them, because I feel like that is weak-minded, that doesn't get you anywhere. And they have to go back, go to work, and rest up as much as you can. But be smart about it, in the sense that you're eager to get back to work, to be able to work on these things in order to change. Because as much as you'd like to have the rest, you can't get addicted to the rest. You got to get back into it. And I think ultimately, this team is in good hands. They understand the topic, they understand the challenge and the mission at stake here. And I think that they are special. Tonight, they just were not good enough in the fourth quarter, especially on offense for this game. But defensively, it's hard to pry at the defense, man. Mikey Samerstill playing at outside corner on A.J. Brown, who outweighs him, who has gains on him in height, the way that he played that football was exceptional in those at red zones. I mean, he was 6 tackles, 2 passes deflected. The one on Jahan Dotson early on, that was picture perfect on how you disrupt a pass. You don't make any contact with the wide receiver until that wide receiver, the ball touches the wide receiver's hands, comes over top, smacks that thing out. Exactly how you want to play that. Exactly how you want to play that. And then he does another one to boot in the end zone on A.J. Brown. He turns around for the ball and smacks it at its high point. That's exactly how you play that football in the red zone. And he didn't seem flustered. He didn't seem like chaotic. He was very calm, cool, collected, saw that ball in and swatted it away. That's how you play DB. That's how you play those go routes. He did it again against Devontae Smith, too, in the end there. They weren't good enough tonight, boys, but there's things to look at to say they are not simply pushovers as much as people are going to look at the final score, look at that fourth quarter and say it was ass whooping. It certainly was not. They battled, man. They really did battle. It's just, unfortunately, they could not come up with the weapons, the explosion that they needed to as a team to be able to get that energy back. Definitely seemed like they were not lackadaisical. It's just they needed something, and it just wasn't there, unfortunately. And that's where you got to go back to the drawing board. You got to figure it out, and you got to get back to work. Simple as that. It's a rough loss, boys, ladies. I know. I get it. I wanted really badly for Philly to be walking out of that stadium upset tonight, and to see them celebrating in the end zone like that with Reed Blankenship, that was putrid, absolutely putrid. I hate seeing that. I don't like seeing them celebrate like that. I want Washington to be doing it, especially in Philly. But look, we play them again. This isn't the end all be all. There's lots of games to play still, and there's a lot to play for. There's something to be proud of, and to know that even though in your first year you were expected to win that game against the Eagles, just think about that for a second. That goes a long way. Don't lose sight of it. I've seen people on Twitter saying, "Oh, we absolutely suck. Everyone was overhyping us." They weren't overhyping us. There's something special here, man. Just because of one bad game. One bad game and one bad spot against the Steelers, and this is what we come to. Just relax and understand this is what winning football is. There's going to be rough patches. There's going to be times where things are tough, but it ultimately comes down to how do you respond from it. And this is going to be difficult for them. Without a doubt it is. But I trust that they have the right people in place to get them into gear, to get them into the right frame of mind. Because this can unravel. It can snowball. But I don't expect it to. I think that they have enough confidence to know what they can do. It's just they got to find it. They got to find it, and that's where it comes down to the coaching staff to be able to help them out a little bit. Now, we have a question submitted. This one was from Tony Franchise on Twitter. It's probably going to be doom and gloom, boys, but you know what? Bear with me. His question is, sucks we lost, but on to the next. How much will this mini bye help out with the health of this team? Well, obviously, it's going to be huge. Just the 3 extra days, obviously. The one bad part about the mini bye, Tony, is that this loss is going to carry weight because of the divisional aspect of it, but also the collapse in the fourth quarter, the offense having questions. You now have to wait 10 days to be able to prove yourself that you actually have that again, right? You had it at once. It slipped your fingers a little bit. You're trying to get back into that rhythm, and so you got to wait a little while. But for the health of this team, it's going to help a lot, especially guys like B-Rob, Badass. I think Jaden Daniels has been, he got beat up a little bit tonight, but I don't think the injury is that much of a concern. It's more of a mental thing. But it is going to help them in a big way, in the sense of being able to, hopefully Marshawn Lattimore is able to suit up next Sunday against Dallas. And so we can feel confident about going into facing Philly again when he comes back. And so I think that we have to consider the overall aspect of this. We're beat the hell up, not making excuses, but they went in, they battled, and it was 10-6 going into that fourth quarter, and it unraveled. And so you got to go back to drawing board, remember it, and come back. Hopefully, when we come back against Philly next time, we'll be able to say we're in a lot better space right now. We got our mojo back, the Austin Powers bit. We got our mojo back, and we're feeling good. And that's what you ultimately want. Don't lose sight of that. You want to feel good again. You got to put in work to do that. But the health-wise, of course it's going to help, just the few extra days. It sucks that of a short week, you're beat up right now that you have to go back into it. But that's the one good thing. That mini bye allows you a little bit extra rest. But you can't get addicted to it. You got to know that there's a caveat that comes with it, of course. Thank you, Tony. I appreciate you, man, because, you saw me at Discord and you immediately came out and helped the boy out. Now, Andy Lockhart in the Discord, from the 1 Point Safety Show, asks, what was the main reason schematically the offense couldn't produce today? Schematically, it's hard to say because they had drops. Jaden was inaccurate throwing off his back foot, but ultimately I think it was the lack of chips, especially on his defensive ends when Brandon Coleman was in there. Sweat was able to get after him. Jalen Carter obviously had a very good day. He was able to get into the backfield almost any time that he wanted. I think the offensive line everyone just seemed out of sorts, if that makes any sense. That's what I mean. Like, you usually can lean on a unit to say that, that's going to be our strength, to help us out just a little bit. Somebody's doing something. But offensively, it didn't seem like anybody was really coming to save the day in that regard, if that makes any sense. Terry wasn't getting targeted. When the wide receivers were able to possibly move the chains, the ball was low. Just everybody was off. And credit to the Eagles for being able to disrupt things and cause chaos. But I still, in my opinion, schematically, I think the chips would have helped a lot. I think the running of the football was not as prevalent as it needed to be, especially early on in that game. And I'll continue to say this. It's that power running game, man. When they need it the most, when it's those 2nd and inches, 3rd and short, 4th, they really do struggle with being able to move bodies out of the way. It's much more so based on the misdirection, and it seems like teams are starting to get hip to that misdirection, and so they have to find that third option to be able to do that. And as of right now, you can't lean on Jaden's legs to be able to get that done because it seems like they're converting somebody to be able to stop you there. And so you got to get smart with it. You got to get creative. You got to find ways to introduce that power running game and to move bodies out of the way. But ultimately, it also goes into the health of things and how everyone is pretty much banged up right now. Brandon Coleman obviously was concussed a couple weeks ago. Lucas just came back in this game. Wiley just came back in this game with his shoulder injury. He didn't have a stellar day, but he had a tough task on some of those blocks going against Jalen Carter, who is a freak of freaking nature, man. I will say that. But schematically on offense, they need to find and be more creative in finding ways to be able to move people around. And they're trying to go to those screens. The screens are getting sniffed out, in most cases. And so you got to find a way to continue looking. I know Dan Quinn has said that they haven't even gone into their bag yet, a full bag, like Santa's present, so to speak. But they got to find a way to be able to move bodies around. At the end of the day, in the playoffs, especially with football, if you can move bodies around, that's when you're really cooking with gas, because the end all be all, if everything else fails, you know that you can just go straight at it and get guys out of the way, kind of like how Philly did tonight, where that's inevitably what it came to, where they like when they ran the ball, they weren't doing all that well up the middle, of course, originally early on. But then later on in that game, the floodgates open after they're tired. But you can see that they felt good attacking the perimeter, getting guys blocking hat on hat, and being able to pick up those 8-9 yards. With Washington, it's more so of like, we get the 4 yards, we get the 5 yards, and if it's not for Brian Robinson's like physical running or Austin Eckler's quick cut to get upfield, that's the only time it typically happens, if that makes any sense. And so we need to not rely on that player aspect. We need to much more rely on the front being able to produce that, if that makes any sense. It does seem like they struggle a little bit. Now the next question is from Deluxe. This is the first game that offensive play calling confused me. What did Philly do to get this team out of rhythm? Well, it definitely started in the trenches. Philly was able to create the chaos, especially because we didn't help in going with pass heavy early on, in my opinion. And so when that happened, they were able to pin their ears back and get after us. And that's when the missed blocks happen. Jaden gets sacked. And then it inevitably leads to Jaden throwing off his back foot, throwing inaccurate footballs. And so it all starts in the trenches. It's not like Philly played in the secondary so well to the point where nothing was open ever and you couldn't find it. It was just chaos involved and creating that confusion. Because I brought it up earlier, Deluxe, about where Jaden tries to escape upfield on that third down, doesn't even see Austin Eckler, just keeps his eyes down, like doesn't even look downfield. He's just dedicated to running and doesn't even look. Where that easy option was there, that would have easily picked up the first down. It just seemed like everyone was out of sorts, and credit to the Eagles for being able to do that. And it was creating that chaos, that confusion up front, which really unraveled things. And they weren't able to get into that rhythm. Right? So you gotta give credit to Philly, but we shot ourselves in the foot. And ultimately it's those big bodies up front. It's the Jalen Carter being able to be a physical freak and doing things that not everyday defensive tackles can do. That one block where Wiley has a long block coming inside has to hit the left shoulder of Jalen Carter, and he literally just swipes that down and then dives like this to be able to stop. I think it was B Rob. It might have been Eckler. But like that's a sort of athletic play you typically don't see from defensive tackles. Like very quick on their feet, being able to their directions going in one way, but then stop and dive and that's very difficult for a big man to do, especially in a short area like that. Typically, you need an extra step. You need to be able to generate that power. Like no, Jalen Carter is still moving. Boom, got it. That's an insane tackle to make, and that chaos of that interior pressure really was bad tonight. I don't want to crap my boy Cosme, but he was not good tonight. And I don't know. I have to look back at the All 22 with Allegretti, but it all started in the trenches. And if you can't move those bodies around, it's going to make the defense's job a lot easier in the sense where you're not moving bodies around, you're not getting upfield running the football, you're forced in those passing situations. Now your quarterback's feeling a little bit anxious, throwing off his back foot, feeling like there's pressure when there's really not. You can just stand there and throw that dart in there. And so it just seemed like a snowball effect offensively. From the trenches, it pushed on to everything else. And even though we were playing with the lead early on, it was like we were still like playing like we were down. And that's not what you want to do. You want to grind that out. You want to control that clock, keep that offense on the sideline. But that's not what we were doing. And it sucks, of course, but that's football, man. This is the NFL. It's hard to do. It's a good team up there in Philly, as much as I don't want to admit it. They are. But we can be better than what we were tonight. And that's one thing you could tip your cap to, say that's not who this team is. I think we know that at this point. And we just gotta find it again. Next question from Deluxe. Mike Davis with defensive snaps. What did you see? What led to it? I saw that JP and John Kyman them were tweeting that he was doing high knees on the sideline and stuff like that. Might have had some tightness in his legs, and he wasn't maybe he was just feeling a little bit of something. But you could see why they went to Mike Davis, just because he almost looks like Benjamin St-Juste in his height and being able to contend with things. But for the most part, man, I didn't see much of Mike Davis whenever he was out there because obviously we're depending on the TV angle. But it wasn't like he was a liability to the point where he was getting abused. And I don't think anybody really was defensively getting abused. They were doing a very good job of getting off the field for a lot of the time. It's just that fourth quarter was a difference, and their back broke. Bend but don't break. And then that fourth quarter, that pick happened. That's all she wrote. And that's we'll get back to it, Arch. I promise you that. But man, with Mike Davis, it was weird seeing his name pop up, but that's why you traded for a guy like Lattimore. Because look, what Mikey showed you tonight, you have Lattimore on the other side. If you're able to null things out a little bit more and make that one extra play, that's when you can really benefit from it, right? And that's why I inevitably think that will happen. So once Lattimore gets back, once his team kind of feels a little bit more healthy, gets their feet back under them, things will change. And I promise you that. I don't think this is. I know people are concerned that this is going to be the snowball effect of. I don't feel that way with this team. I truly don't. Maybe I should, but I don't. I think these are a bunch of hardworking dudes that aren't going to be okay with this. And we talked about early on, you don't want to peak too early. And so a hiccup like this could actually be a good thing to say that, you don't want that hiccup to happen in the playoffs, right? So if you can nip in the butt now, that's the best case scenario for your football team. You just got to find other avenues, other ways to win. And ultimately, they couldn't get it tonight. That fumble recovery would have been huge. The Dallas Goedert, Quan Martin coming in and hitting that ball out was huge. You could see he was visibly upset when nobody had a play on that ball. But credit to Philly for being able to track that thing down in a hustle aspect. But that goes into how much time the defense was seeing, and they were gassed, man. The energy was out. They needed something to rile them back up, and it just did not happen, unfortunately. They got to get back to the drawing board. It's hard to be able to pinpoint. I got to go back and watch the game again, but man, this was a hard one. Obviously, the Steelers was a hard one, just in the manner that they lost, where they could have had it. But this is another one where you let it slip out of your fingers. You shot yourselves in the foot. You didn't come prepared. It seemed like things were just very chaotic, and you gotta find that. And that's what I mean about having that consistent and constant running game where you're moving guys out of the way. You're going to have games like this where everything is chaotic. Nothing seems like it's really working. But the Eagles are a great example of this, especially tonight. Nothing was really working for them early on. They were running the football well with Saquon, a little bit here and there, but then Washington nullifies it. And so they try to go to other avenues. But then they come back to that power running, being able to run the football. And that's where, even though things aren't really working for you, you still feel confident in your ability to do that. And you're able to move guys out of the way, and it's able to carry your offense. Like that one touchdown drive, I think the second to last one, they ran 5 straight times to finish that drive for a touchdown. And so, that's the sort of thing that I mean here is you got to find that. You got to find that recipe, that formation, that way of running the football or passing the football, whatever way, to be able to be the concrete bottom to say if nothing else is working, we know this will do well. Hard to do in the NFL. I'm just saying this hard to do because they're a young team just brought together, but you got to find that recipe. You got to find that play. You got to find that feeling that doesn't matter what you do, we're still going to be able to do this well. And it seems like that's what I meant about against the Steelers where they only rushed for 60 yards. The Ravens, they only rushed for less. I think it was 54 yards against the Ravens. When they go against these teams that are dedicated to stopping that, you don't have the thing to do that say, we're still going to do it. And that's, I think, is the difference here, is that running game has to be, you have to find it. You have to find the way to be able to inflict your will upon the other team, especially up front. And it all starts in the trenches. But no excuses, boys. Thank you all. If you're watching this, you're a champion. Going to bed unhappy tonight. Enjoy it, Philly. Whatever. You guys. I don't even like you guys. You guys smell. All right, everybody. We'll see you again. We won't be recording on Sunday. You'll see us again on Wednesday. Going to my buddy's wedding this weekend. Going to see my boys and our friends that we haven't seen since we moved. So I'm very excited about it. Going to be able to see the crew again. But I hope you guys have a great, safe weekend. Get off social media for a little bit, all right? Even though I'm sitting here, probably YouTube, podcasting, whatever have you, just try to avoid the hysteria. I said this on Twitter earlier. One thing that I learned from working in restaurants, when you have a crazy rush, there's a lot of chaos going around. A lot of customers, things are coming up late. Last thing, the worst people you worked with were the ones in that time that were screaming, berating people, saying this isn't being done right, you suck at this, but that's not helping. Take one thing at a time. Just fix one thing at a time. Keep your head on a swivel and keep it going. And that's what I would really hold for you guys is don't go too extreme. You don't want that. Just keep it level-headed and just understand one at a time, take care of one issue at a time. And by the time that you have finished a bunch of those things, that rush is almost over and you're almost out of it. You know what I mean? So just keep your head on a swivel. Don't be that guy. As much as they say, well, I'm not okay with losing. Well, having that attitude doesn't fix the losing at that point. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't help the situation. It's almost like seeing two people fight and then coming in and starting to fight them and being like, well, I don't like fighting, so I'm coming here. Like, that doesn't help. It doesn't help anything. Just stop the fight, dude. So everyone chill out. Calm down. It's funny. I just wanted to say, it is funny, though. Because we came into the season not really, I didn't have expectations for wins. A lot of people, 6, 7, 8 wins. We are battling for the NFC East. It's week 11. We're 7-3 going into this game. We lose it, obviously, in a very poor manner. I'm not going to say embarrassing. I don't think it was embarrassing. I've seen embarrassing. This was not embarrassing. But we lose that game and everyone is flipping out. Have that confidence to say, wow, I can't believe we've gotten this far, that we are upset about this loss, which we very well should be. You know, as a football team, they should be upset about it. But, just take that in for a second of where this team is. It's insane. In their first year, rookie quarterback, contending for the NFC East, and being pissed off about a loss that you could have had. It was a missed opportunity. It's okay to acknowledge that. That's fine. Let them boast. Let them rub your face in it. The football team kind of deserves it. I deserve it, as myself. You want to pile on me, go right ahead. I say stupid stuff. I do stupid things. Pile on me, it's fine. Just understand we're seeing competitive football. And as much as that you could point, people are going to be pissed and say, this was a competitive game. This was a battle. It was a battle to the fourth quarter. Yeah, we didn't win, but they in battle, dude. We got to do better. By the end of the day, embrace where they are. It could be a heck of a whole lot worse, man. It could be so much worse. We've all seen it. We're all fans of this team. We know what it's like. Just calm down. I know we wanted to win. Just, if you got to win like a champion, you got to lose like a champion. And the last thing you want to do is start fighting on the damn sidelines like Jonathan Allen, Jerron Payne did against Dallas a couple years ago. That 50-point loss. That's embarrassing. This was not embarrassing. This was a collapse in the fourth quarter. It's not embarrassing. Get back to it. Go to work and find yourself again. All right? They're going to say a lot. Who cares? We'll see you again soon. All right, everybody. We'll see you on Wednesday next week. Have a great, safe weekend. All right? Please enjoy it. Stay off social media. Have some fun. Hang out with friends. Take your kids to the movies. Do some fun stuff. Just enjoy your weekend, please. Don't let this beat you up too bad. It's just football at the end of the day. Ball is life, of course. But you can't let it drive you insane. Don't let it drive you insane. Just try to do better. All right, everybody. I'll see you again on Wednesday. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.